We had our second MoFit Ruck Club Saturday morning ruck this past Saturday. And Dave from the gym came out and he did the ruck with us. And Dave was in the Navy and he's done a bunch of rucking. So we were just trading rucking, horror stories while we did the 5-ish miles that we did. And one of the memories that I had was it was 2016 or 2017, I can't remember, but it was a St. Patty's Day GORUCK Tough, and it was in Jacksonville. And this was one of the 12-hour ones. So it started at like 9 o'clock at night and ended roughly 9 o'clock the next morning. I was there with all of the, the other GRTs, and we're waiting for the cadre to show up. And when he got there, tall guy, chiseled, older. He looked like he was probably approaching 60-ish years old, but his face was just like chiseled. He looked like he had a body fat percentage of about 1. Here's a picture of him right here. Here's and I found this, by the way. I'll give some credit. I'll put the credit in print on the screen. Dug this up on somebody else's after action report that he published, I think, on his blog. A bunch of pictures, and these are pictures that he took of his GORUCK Tough event run by the same cadre. This is Cadre David, and it appears by every detail down to be exactly the same experience that I had with the same cadre. So I don't have any pictures of mine except for at the very, very end, and I'll share that in a minute. But I'm going to use his photographs, and thank you very much to the gentleman that posted all these. These are great. Anyway, that's Cadre David right there. There he is. When I saw him walk up, I'm sure I was not alone. And thinking to myself, oh, shit. This guy, we're dead. We could just tell by looking at him. And it soon turned out that we were all pretty accurate in that assessment. The first thing that we did, as with most GORUCK events, especially in the 12-hour long ones, the toughs, and all of them, is what they call the welcome party, which is where they just smoke the crap out of you for anywhere from, on the shorter ones, a half an hour up to an hour and a half or more. On the longer events, it's just PT, just endless PT, just to smoke the shit out of you. And he did, except what he did. And here's a picture. Let me see. Here's a picture of the welcome party. I think he's addressing the welcome party here. And you notice everybody has their shoes off, and their shoes are tied around their necks. Now, this was unfortunate for people who didn't wear socks. Typically, because if you've ever been somebody who doesn't wear socks on a regular basis, your shoes are not something that you want to put up close to your face. Notice everybody in this photograph has their shoes up close to their face. Here's another one. This one is obviously during the welcome party. Why they're all smiling, I don't know. At this point in our welcome party, none of us were smiling, but you notice they're all barefoot and they have their shoes around their necks. At one point, we had to line up just like we are here in this photo, and we had to take the shoes off. We put them down in front of us again, and he had everybody take one step to the left or to the right. I don't remember. So now we were standing in front of somebody else's shoes, and we were instructed that those are now the shoes that we're going to have to wear for the rest of the night. So they either fit or they didn't fit. They were either too big or too small. Maybe some people had shoes that fit well. I don't know. I mean, mine were a little small. But off we went into the night to do the ruck. About an hour later, after we'd covered a couple of miles, he let us all put our normal shoes back on. But the point is, we thought we were going to go the whole night and have to wear the shoes that we were wearing. Turns out we didn't know that he was planning on only making us do it for an hour. And mentally, that's what he wanted, and it worked. It worked very well. But the thing that I was telling Dave about, as we were doing the Saturday morning ruck, was a thing called the Pendulum of Pain. And I'll describe it a little bit before I show you pictures of it. So at one point, I don't know, middle of the night, sometime in the middle of the night, we ended up at a bank. And the bank had a drive-through, and we were taking a break underneath the drive-through. And here's another one of my fond memories of this particular night. We all had a chance to have a snack. So we were getting water, getting electrolytes in us, having a snack. Throwing up was imminent. I was going to have an overexertion puke fest. I didn't want to do it in front of everybody, so I walked across the street and I'm just yakking into some bushes. And it wasn't a big deal. I threw up and immediately felt better. But as I was puking into the bushes, I could hear Cadre David yelling across the street, "Nobody cares!" Yeah. Anyway, so we go back, break's over, and he instructs us that all of the parts of a contraption that we were about to have to build were stashed behind the bushes. So went behind the bushes, and there was, I don't know, 4 8-foot 4x4s, some metal clamps, something that looked like a roller skate, some rope, some carabiners, and 4 of the 5-gallon like Home Depot style buckets filled with like rocks, like river rocks, like small rocks, like, big gravel. So he pulled it all out, and he gave us an overview of how he had to build it, and then he just left it up to us to build it. And it ended up being sort of, imagine two of the 4x4s were the vertical parts of the letter H, of a capital H. Okay. The other 2 4x4s had metal plates to bolt them together lengthwise. So just imagine 2 4x4s bolted together lengthwise, but there was a space between them, maybe 1.5 inches or so between them. So 2 4x4s bolted together about 1.5 inches apart, parallel to each other. And then that became the cross piece of the capital H. The 4 buckets filled with rocks were bundled together with rope and then fed up through that space between the 2 4x4s and attached to that roller skate looking thing. So that if the H were to be placed horizontally on the ground, you could lift it up and the buckets would be suspended from the middle of the H, but they're connected to that roller skate thing. So if it was up off the ground enough, the buckets would come off the ground and it could swing back and forth if you were to tip it either way. And that's exactly what would happen. You would have 8 guys under that H. Here's a picture of it. Right here. They are carrying the Pendulum of Pain. You see the 4 buckets, all the rope. You see that roller skate thing. And you got 8 guys. You got 8 guys, 2 under the left front, 2 left rear, and then both on the right side as well. Now you see it was a large group, so we were able to switch out and take turns carrying it, which was a godsend. And that was the whole idea of it. It was a team event. Our problem was we had to carry this thing for the whole rest of the night. This thing was with us for the rest of the night. At one point, though, about an hour into carrying it, and believe me, an hour into carrying it, we were all just toast. Somebody dropped. We had another coupon, another heavy thing that we had to carry, which was a slosh pipe. Picture like a 6-inch thick PVC pipe with maybe half filled with water and capped at both ends so the water could slosh around. Made it really awkward to carry. So that was, slosh pipe was one of the things. And this was Cadre David's personal slosh pipe. It was his. It didn't belong to Gorer. He brought it. One of the other guys dropped it, and it was an accident, but he dropped it and it broke. So here we are in the middle of the night carrying this Pendulum of Pain. And in the background, you hear, shit. Cadre David said, "What happened?" Slosh pipe broke. Cadre David was noticeably pissed off. So what we had to do, we were at point X somewhere in the middle of Jacksonville, out in the middle of nowhere. And we had to, maybe it was Jacksonville Beach, because we did go all the way back to the beginning. Jacksonville Beach, not Jacksonville. So we had to turn around, carry the Pendulum of Pain about a mile back to the pier at Jacksonville Beach. I'm remembering this correctly now. I got back to the pier, carried the Pendulum of Pain down to the breakers, and then we got about, I don't know, maybe thigh high into the breakers. We had to take a left, and we went north up the beach, carrying the Pendulum of Pain north up the beach, and turned around, came back south down the beach, took a right at the pier, went back up to the place where the slosh pipe was broken, and he was like, "All right, good, carry on." That was 3 hours. That was 3 hours that was added on, because we still did everything else. That wasn't like, well, we did this extra 3 hours, we'll cut 3 hours off the end. That was 3 hours added to the entire night. Here's another shot of I had 2 of them, I thought. Yeah, here's another good shot. You can see the anguish in this guy's face. Look at the guy in the back. That was all of us at some point during the night. You get a good shot there of the roller skate thing. Anyway, let's go back to Cadre David here while we talk about it. So as he was leading us through the rest of the night, we made it, and eventually, eventually it was all over. And here's a shot of me at the very end. Now there's Cadre David at this event. Here's me at the end of the one that I did, and you can see Cadre David in the background there. But of the GORUCKs that I've done, I think this was my favorite one because it was the most miserable by far. And it was the genius of Cadre David there in the background. And I think someday I will honor him by building my own Pendulum of Pain to use on our events at some point because it was awesome.